5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to OK Alison Cooks. I'm your host, Alison OK Frost, and this is my guest for this evening, John Casey.
Hi, everybody.
Talk louder?
No.
Oh,
We're good?
Sorry.
This is live.
This is live television. So for those of you who saw the first episode of OK Alison Cooks, you can tell that we're filming in a different location. That's because tonight, just to rub it in the faces of any viewers we might have on the East Coast, we are outdoors cooking barbecue here in California.
Sorry, guys.
So tonight we're going to be making tri-tip steaks. We're also going to be roasting some winter vegetables on the barbecue, and we're going to be talking to John Casey about his life and his work. So you can see John Casey's work at the Compound Gallery right now. That's at 1167 65th Street in beautiful Oakland, California. You can also see his work at johncasey.com, and you have an art blog at Bunnywax.
I do, bunnywax.wordpress.com. Yeah, so I cover some of my processes, and I cover other art shows I see. Although with all the influx of Instagram and all that, I haven't been quite as updated with that, but as active. But still, there's a lot of hopefully interesting stuff on there.
Great,
yeah.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And as always, you can see my work at AlisonOKFrost.com. You can see my work right now in New American Paintings, issue number 155, although I hear it is sold out. But maybe if you see it on newsstands, pick it up. There's a lot of great work in it, and
awesome.
It's hard to find.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's impressive. Very cool.
So today we're going to be making tri-tip steaks. I'm going to wait for, probably they can't hear the church bells.
Yeah, I don't know.
So today we're going to be making tri-tip steaks, as I mentioned. Tri-tip is a lean cut of meat. It's called something else outside of California, although I don't know exactly what that thing is. But it is a lean meat, which means it's going to do well with a marinade. Basically, for a marinade, you need a few different elements. You need an acid, salt, sugar, oil, and I think that's it. And then whatever.
It smells great.
Yeah.
It really does.
So for my acid, I used a Lagunta Imperial Stout beer. You can also use vinegar. You can use lemon. You can use oranges, probably.
Did you say beer?
I did say beer. I wanted to use a beer in honor of our guest today, who is a beer enthusiast.
I am.
For the oil, I used an olive oil. For the sugar, I used blackstrap molasses. My husband likes to say that blackstrap molasses is not as good as I think it is. I think he's wrong.
Yes. I don't want to get in between the two of you, but I probably agree with you. Yeah.
Excellent. And what else? For salt, I used plain old kosher salt. I also added some garlic and bay leaves and some black pepper. So that's our marinade.
So good.
So we're going to put this over on the grill. I've got a hot side of the grill and a warm side of the grill. There's no cold side, obviously. If you're working on a traditional non-gas grill, you can do the same thing by putting all of your charcoal briquettes on one side of your grill, and then that's going to be your hot side. So I'm going to throw these on the hot side for about 5 minutes per side, just to sear them, and then we'll move them over to the medium side. So these beautiful, beautiful hunks of meat.
Those are beautiful.
All right.
Hi, Mary. We're filming. I love the color on that.
Yeah, that's that stout, I think,
Yeah.
giving it that great, deep, earthy
Gorgeous.
color.
Gorgeous.
Okay. All right, so while we're letting that sear, let's get started on our vegetables, and
Cool.
and let's start talking about John Casey.
Okay.
So, so you're not originally from California?
I am not. I'm a masshole. So
Oh.
I'm from Massachusetts. Grew up in a little tiny town. I was actually born in Salem, Massachusetts on Friday the 13th.
Nice.
Not that that means much, but back there. I think I hear some demon voices speaking to me. But anyways, and then I grew up in a small town called Swampscott, Massachusetts. It's 3 square miles, but I think there was something like 14,000 people living in 3 square miles, so it's a very dense, small New England town on the coast, just north of Boston.
Excellent. And how did you end up in California?
My wife got a job offer out here during the first.com, and I was enjoying my art life in Boston, but didn't realize how different it was from being out in California. I thought I would take a good chance on that. My brother had been living in Seattle, so I thought the West Coast would be kind of cool to try out, and then we went ahead and did that. So yeah, we've been here for about 17 years.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like you to start cutting up some carrots. I don't mind the skins if you do.
I don't mind the skins.
Okay.
How do you want them just like chop that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
like soup style?
Yeah, exactly.
All
so,
right.
and this is fennel. We're cooking things from my CSA box. My box is farm fresh to you. I'd recommend it. Why not? And fennel, I've been roasting all winter just with my other vegetables. Not so much the stalks. I'll save these for broth, but we're gonna chop up the bulb and roast that.
Yeah, my wife Mary loves fennel. I love fennel too, but it's kind of like her thing that she's been cooking with quite a bit. So.
Oh, great.
Love you, Mary. Thought I would throw that out there. I don't know if she's watching, to be honest with you. She's probably commuting.
Yeah. Fun fact, John Casey's wife and my husband work together at the same company that builds joists.
Yep.
So do you like a lot of fennel? Should I do 2 bulbs or?
Whatever you think is appropriate.
Okay, why not?
We can feed the masses, right?
Yeah, that sounds
hungry?
great. And we've got some vegetarians in the house.
All right. I'm sorry to hear that. No, kidding.
So when did you start? When did you start drawing?
I sort of describe that as soon as I was able to hold a crayon. And my parents were very supportive and really encouraged me to draw. But I really was drawing since I was like very young, like a really young child. Yeah, and just mostly it was creatures. Like I was really into doing figures. I was into doing characters. I was into doing monsters. I was into doing animals. But yeah, that was pretty much my fixation as a kid.
Were you the dragon drawing kid in middle school?
I was the kid. You know, I got to say, in my school, there were a couple of kids who were super talented, and I don't know if the dragon was the measure of the ability to render the really cool thing. I think we were sort of into skulls and like chopper motorcycles. Right. So if you could do like a dude with a skull and a chopper motorcycle, you know, then you were the king.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to make a foil packet to start loading our vegetables into.
Okay.
I learned this at camp when I was a kid, and it's my preferred way to grow vegetables. I'm kind of opposed to skewers. I don't know why. I'm
okay with that. I think skewers are kind of a pain in the butt.
They're kind of a pain.
Stuff falls off them. They get burned. They fall apart.
Right.
Yeah. They look cool for about a minute.
For about a minute, and then you're just trying to think of how to get the stuff off the skewers so you can eat it. So, all right.
Cool. I like your radishes, too.
Yeah, I've never grilled radishes, but I figure...
Yeah, what the heck?
Why the hell not?
Let's do it.
All right. Do you want to chop some radishes?
Sure.
Are you a beet person?
Sure.
Cool.
I eat land, sea, air, you name it. All around the food spectrum.
That's great. I am too. So you're there's a real darkness in your work, and I'm thinking.
Oh, you think so?
It's not a pejorative, but Especially, I think, let's see, the first of your work that I remember really registering is these faces where it's almost like the faces are turning dark from the
Oh,
inside.
like they were overly marked.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea behind that for me was just sort of generating an emotional state through the actual physical mark making on the figure. So I really used like the center of the face. You know, when you get that sort of very emotional state, you have this sort of, a lot of people like to talk about the heart, but I literally talk about the center of the skull, like the center of the head, and it would almost like emanate out. So like people say, why are your noses so dark, or why is it so dark under your eyes, or why is that happening? And I just feel like that is where the sort of core of the emotion is generating from, you know, or the psychology of the character is generating from. So it's kind of leaching out of the person's skull through the nose and the eyes, you know.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's always sort of how I felt about that.
You know Scott Greenwald?
I do.
Yeah, he has
Great artist.
He's a wonderful artist,
Yeah.
but his work also pretty dark.
Yeah.
Seems to have a lot of sort of black ooze coming out of the eyes, which is sort of a similar, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure part of it is, you know, horror influenced and, you know, just doing that sort of, I don't want to say obvious, but just referencing, you know, again, going back to the idea of the skull or the face and just trying to make something sort of scary or frightening, you know, and trying to portray that. I think, you know, when you're younger, you do it in this sort of simplified form with all these sort of comic book genres as your reference. And as you get older, you try to make it a little bit more sophisticated if you can. So I'm hoping I'm getting a little bit more sophisticated with age.
Yeah, no, I'd say like you definitely have sort of your own lexicon of visual dark themes.
Yeah, I think that gets developed over a long period of time. You know, I see a lot of young artists using, you know, other people's themes, and I think that's perfectly valid, and using a lot of pop culture reference, things like that. And I think that's perfectly good because you know they need to develop the ability to do that, and then at some point their personal vision or their personal voice will emerge from that. I hope.
Right.
You know, that's the goal. So, assuming they stick with it and are really dedicated to it and all that good stuff.
When do you feel like that happened for you, or?
Oh boy. You know, I have to say moving to California really opened up a lot for me. I mean, I felt like in Boston I was doing this very figurative abstraction that was super aggressive, kind of, I wouldn't say hypersexual, but just very, very intense, a little violent, and with no subtleties, you know what I mean? There really wasn't a lot of subtlety involved. And I think that's like a young man's issue, you know, like trying to find subtlety in your life. And then as I got older, I moved to California, and really just, you know, having a good life, having a good marriage, having good friends, you sort of begin to appreciate more in life, and you see there's a bigger diversity of emotion and feeling and reference points. So I felt like I was getting more of that going on, you know.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So even though the work is dark, I like to think it has a level of complexity that also has some humor in it, and you know, some you know, sense of like longing or sense of, you know, just different types of emotional situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it definitely does.
Cool.
So let's see. Actually,
those beats look great.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do all of them.
It's like the best natural dye.
It really is.
Yeah. Very cool.
I teach high school from time to time, and I did like a week-long high school class where the kids made all their own pigments.
Cool.
We went to the farmers market and various national parks where we weren't supposed to take things home. But.
Right. Shh, don't tell anybody.
All right. So I'm actually gonna hand these beads to you, and the reason is I want to get into how to. I'm gonna move the knife.
Okay. So you want me to peel them a little bit and then cut off?
Yeah, exactly.
I gotcha.
So I want to get into this butternut squash.
Yeah. I love squash.
Do you?
It is, but it's a bit of a beast to handle.
It is.
Because it gets, once you cut it open, it's all slippery and kind of crazy and off-center. So,
yeah.
So good luck.
Thank you. So first thing I do is I just cut off the end of it, and then I cut off the stem. And then I cut it in half. And now I'm just gonna, I need a garbage bag.
It looks even cooler, doesn't it? Like the pattern on that. It's like some sort of alien egg pod or space pod.
It really is. So I'm going to use this spoon and just scoop out all of these seeds. You can roast these seeds. You can pretty much use pumpkin and butternut squash interchangeably. Oh, thank you. So once you've scooped out the middle, you're almost ready to go. You can't eat the skin on a butternut squash. I found that peelers, like what you would use for a carrot, etc., doesn't work that well. So I just like to use a small paring knife, something like this. And then just carve it away. It's a little bit time consuming, but it never takes as long as I think it will.
Yeah, but it's so worth it.
It really is. All right, I'm going to get into the big knife here because I'm not getting enough sharpness with my paring knife. Do you cook, John?
I was sort of king of the stir fry for a long time, and I think my wife just got tired of stir fry. She was usually working a little bit later than I would, and then it'd be like, oh, stir fry again, and so really Mary is I defer to her in a lot of cases, but I'm very good with like just the basic food groups. Like if it's like chicken breast and like roasted Brussels sprouts with some like olive oil and just salt and pepper, some really simple stuff like that. So all those basic meals I'm very, very good at. That said, there have been plenty of times we've done crock pot cooking where we've had to go to somebody's house. We'll set something up for some period of time, and as long as I can follow a recipe, I'm pretty good with it. But I am generally fairly lazy about using recipes, and not sure why that is.
So I just moved our steaks over to the warm side from the hot side, and now I'm actually going to close the barbecue and just let them do their thing for a while. We're almost done with our vegetables here, so we'll throw those on as well in just a minute. And how should we do our garlic? Do you like whole cloves?
Yeah, whole roasted is fine.
Yeah,
you want to do that?
Yeah. So the
You going to break these up?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. You want me to skin them, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I have a tip for that if you...
Yeah, the little bang down thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's everyone's tip.
It's a good tip. I feel like I should put this stuff in there, though, so I don't contaminate it.
Oh, yeah, please.
Nice colors.
Isn't it? I love winter vegetables so much.
Awesome. Cool. It's funny, at home we have a little wooden mushroom that we use to slam down on the garlic. But I know some people use do the knife method.
Yeah, that's what I do. Oops.
So do people ever ask you questions?
Sure.
So how's motherhood treating you? Oh.
It's really great. I don't know.
That seems like a huge creative project, you know, like the ultimate experiment.
Yeah, it really is. It really is making a human.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Like, it was hard. It was hard on my art life at first.
Yeah.
You know, a combination of sort of sleep deprivation and time deprivation, and also, you know, my one sort of major theme of my work is that I find a lot of humor in the fact that, you know, humanity's on its way down the...
Yeah, very dystopian future.
So, and
I see that in your work for sure.
As soon as my daughter was born, all of a sudden I didn't think that was that funny anymore.
Right. You want my daughter to have a nice future.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Sure.
So, you know, but I think I've sort of reconciled, if anything, my feelings about the whole thing are just more complicated, which I think might make my work stronger in the long run.
Sure. You can teach her the basics for the future, like how to use a handgun.
Yeah,
you know, how to
absolutely.
cook with a solar panel. You know, how to retrieve water from, you know, rocks or whatever, you know, places that people would normally retrieve water from.
Yep.
I have that same sort of dystopian view on the future, but at the same time I try to have a good sense of humor about it and hope that it's many centuries off.
Yeah, we can
We can only hope, yeah, and we only hope that humankind is going to get their shit together to make things better for the next generations. We hope.
We hope. Or get the hell out of the way.
Right. Yeah, right. There you go.
So what's the weirdest job you've ever had to support your art practice?
Weirdest job. Boy, that's interesting. I've done a lot of, when I was younger, when I was in school, it was a lot of security guard work.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I worked at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
Oh,
And I also worked at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum years before the theft, by the way, just for the record. Sure. But at one point, I was working, I don't know, man, it's college, I'm working, I'm hungover, I'm doing my day shift. I'm working in the Foster Gallery. I'm not even sure if that's still one of the galleries at the museum. And the Foster Gallery had a lot of the big 20th century paintings, including like a very big Rauschenberg that had, aside from a lot of paint and stuff on it, had this sort of weird shelf on it that had a pencil that was rolled up with string that was attached to the shelf, and then a tin can that was sitting on top of that, and then a whole bunch of paint. So there were objects on the painting, and then typical Rauschenberg assemblage, yeah. So as I'm, and we had as guards, we rarely, I mean, the worst thing you ever had to do is go tell somebody this, don't touch that, or step back, please, because people just would get right up on the art, and I don't know, I always seem to have that, you always had that problem in like the Impressionist room, or you had it in the like a genre painting room where you'd have these like giant landscapes, and people would want to get up there and just like touch it, but almost never in the contemporary art. Contemporary art, I think, just kind of puts people back a little bit, makes them take a step back. Plus the scale of the work is so big that people just are always stepping back to look at it. But at one point, this guy came into the gallery, and he was probably, I don't know, 6'8", huge guy. He had on this big orange. It was wintertime. He had on this big orange parka. And he had this really wild beard and wild hair, and he just looked really kind of like disoriented and just really confused, and then he's just like walking all over the place, storming around the gallery. I'm like, here I am hungover, just looking at this guy storming around. I'm like, what am I going to do? I got to like call this in to like to the manager, to the head security guys. Wasn't sure what to do with that. And next thing I know, the guy goes right up to the Rauschenberg. He takes the pencil and right off the shelf with a string, and he just like whizzes it into the air, and it like unravels across the gallery. And then he like swats the can off the shelf. So I'm like, oh my God, like somebody's destroying art in the contemporary art gallery. It's a Rauschenberg. This is terrible. I'm freaking out. So of course I call in. I'm like, what's the code for like the emergency?
Yeah.
I call in the code. All the head guys come in. Those are the guys who were in plain clothes. They weren't in like uniforms. They were like in plain clothes. And they also carried sidearms. So they came in. One guy had the gun out and sort of down at the side. They all come barreling in to check on the guy. they pretty much like grab the guy and like this big sort of, the guy doesn't struggle or anything. He just sort of sits there like, oh, like, and he just puts his head down, and then they escort him out. And it was just very bizarre. So I'm just standing there, and they're like, and they're telling me like I have to, you know, help close down the gallery. And it's not a huge space. It's big enough, but it's,
Yeah.
we had to section off the whole area, so we did that. So we put up all these stanchions and not chains, but you know, straps or whatever. Close the gallery down, and then this whole crew of curators and preservators come in, and they set up this big table in the middle of the gallery with X-ray machine, like X-ray setup, light, you know, light tables and stuff. And I guess they X-ray all the art and stuff, and so they really went kind of crazy putting all that stuff down and put out all the detail. And then they're really studying it, and there's like, there had to be 15 people there studying this painting and looking at it and photographing the damage and all this other stuff. And after about, well, it was probably 2.5 hours of just studying this thing. And I think this, for me, this is actually not such a bad thing, because now I can like totally chill. You know, I wasn't feeling so great. Next thing I know, the guy goes over, like the head curator, he's got the white gloves on, the whole thing. He picks up the pencil, slowly rolls the string up, and literally sits it up on the shelf. And then they take the can, and they slowly take it up, and they put it on the shelf. So it turns out that the guy who came in and did that, unfortunately, was with a group of adults with disabilities and learning disabilities. And he was just part of a group, and he had gotten separated from his group.
Oh.
So he was terrified, this poor guy. He was completely terrified about what had gone down, because those guys were so kind of, I wouldn't say rough, but they were very assertive with this guy.
Yeah.
And then so what they did is they brought him down to the coat room to go, and then went to go to find his group, but they left him alone in the coat room, and he ran off into the Fenway. So he was lost. I have no idea if they ever found the guy, but the guy ran away. And
Well, it sounds like he was pretty easy to find. Or
well, yeah, visually, yeah, you could spot him a mile away. But that poor guy was terrified. I mean, once we found out about that, I was like, wow, this has all been handled rather poorly. But whatever.
Right.
So you live, you learn.
That's amazing. So
I'm going to just dump this in here.
Yeah. So I don't think you need to do much to vegetables.
Cool.
These are fresh and local and organic. And I'm just basically going to put pepper and salt. Somebody left a bunch of lemons.
Look at that salt.
Yeah, this is Himalayan pink salt.
Wow. Of course it is.